From the banks of Dewey Lake, it's the Dewey Pod Monster.
Welcome back. My name is John, and this is the Dewey Pod Monster podcast. This is your weekly podcast about consumption. It's a lot about movies, but it's actually about consumption. We are, of course, proud members of the You Run Podcast Network. You can find all of our old episodes, all of our upcoming episodes, and all the other great shows on the You Run Podcast Network at yourunpodcast.com. With me this week is the host of, not the You Run Podcast Network, he's the host of the Dewey Pod Monster podcast, and his name is Sean. And Sean, welcome to spring break.
Thanks, John. How'd you like that thing doing squats on your tool?
All right, you win. You have the better deep cut this week than I do.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
Just fine.
I worked on it.
What have you been watching this? You know what? I'm not shocked by that. What have you been watching this week, Sean?
All right. So, John, I'm going to give
Other
this
than my tool.
Well, hey. No comment. No comment. I'm going to give you, most going to be multiple choice. So I'm going to go with A, B, C. Which one do you want to start with? I watched three things.
B.
All right. So B, what I watched was a funny, fun little movie. I don't know if I'd actually be calling it fun, but called Kindergarten Ninja. And Kindergarten Ninja is a movie, technically. It's about a football player named Blade Steele, who is a
using my
running back.
descriptors now. If you're like, this is a movie.
This is technically a movie, if you say that, has a beginning, middle, and an end. Blade Steele is a football
hour and a
star.
half long.
Yeah. Well, no, this is about 77 minutes, thankfully. He's a football star. He gets caught drunk driving, and for some reason, an angel comes to heaven. Sounds a little bit like Quigley. An angel comes down from heaven to aid him while he teaches an elementary class for his community service, sentence for drunk driving. Now, an angel comes down. I didn't mention the angel. He's not directly called this, but it's implied that the angel is Bruce Lee. Do I have you? Do I still have you?
I mean, you had me at Kindergarten Ninja, but now I'm equally interested.
When the bad guy shows up, it actually flashes under the guy's face. It says bad guy in like red letters. It flashes. And
now I'm absolutely sold.
Yeah,
I'm watching this like tonight.
The bad guy is like on his motivation is that he has these elementary school kids selling drugs for him. It's kind of like the Coleman Young Boys or whatever from Detroit, like back in the 70s and 80s. And it leans really hard on Kindergarten Cop, but it also, I forgot who the star is, but he's like a known, he was actually a football player. I don't know what his position was. He was like at least a commentator on some kind of football thing, like a really B-grade football player guy, right? So I don't know exactly who he was, but again, it leans really hard on Kindergarten Cop because we have like the kids are, they're doing things and it's not a tumor. Like it's not a tumor isn't actually in this movie, but it leans pretty heavily on Kindergarten Cop. And the only thing I can sum up this movie by saying is this movie is like the joy of watching a movie without a single professional actor or sound person in the cast. Some action thing happens.
We had a handful of those on this show.
And it's just Foley work, right? Like somebody clapping some coconuts on a board and that's like a horse running away, or people, they just took some empty shoes and they slapped it on a board and those are people shuffling away and running away. So Kindergarten Cop, Jesus, no way. Kindergarten Ninja, we've upgraded. I would strong recommend to waste your time with your 77 minutes with Kindergarten Ninja. So now that leaves us with A and C. So which one do you want to move to next?
Let's go for A. I'm assuming it's Wrestler Corner.
It is not, actually. Trick question. There is no Wrestler Corner this week. I didn't get a chance to watch Dark Side of the Ring.
What?
But, I'm sorry. But I made it up with Kindergarten Ninja. So I watched with my kids, I watch Empire Records, and I don't know if you've ever seen Empire Records.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan. I know that movie's got like a huge cult following, and it
Why?
That's kind of my thought with it, but proceed.
I always thought that Empire Records was more known for its soundtrack, like it had some big deal soundtrack with some kind of high profile artists of the time. But my kids wanted to watch a movie and I said, well, let's watch, let Dad pick. And I picked for whatever reason. Like I totally remember hating this movie and thought it was super overrated when it was out. So we watched it and my kids were like, what happened? Like, what is this movie about? Like, what is this actually about? Like there is a very bare bones plot and thing to it.
this is going to say a lot because we haven't brought this guy's name up in a while, for better or worse, but I feel like it's Clerks, but not funny.
Yeah, I could see that. It feels like it's definitely playing off those vibes. It's got a lot of similarities to Clerks, like the small, tight-knit community of 19 and 20-somethings that run this record store. And
no
they
one
all
has
seem like
sex with
assholes.
the dead guy in the bathroom, which is sad.
Didn't do that. Warren Beatty's still the best part of that movie, and I didn't laugh more than maybe once. I think I got one laugh out of the whole movie. My kids were just watching it dumbstruck. Like, what are we watching? What is this filth?
I mean, the flip side of that is that kind of goes back to what I was saying last week, and I don't know. It was your Totally Killer movie. It's a one-off throwaway. You're in and out in an hour and in a half or whatever. And I'm not going to go as far to say I hate Empire Records because I don't. Like, there's just not enough there to make me like, okay, that's fine. I just don't think there's enough movie there to make me hate it. I feel like it's just a product of that era, and it's fairly bland.
Yeah, I would agree. And then lastly, but not leastly, since we only have one selection left, we're going to go with C. I watched Massacre at Central High, which is a 1976 kind of high school. I shared
a clip from that movie.
Film. Yeah, the hang glider guy that gets caught in the power lines. And I shared a few clips on at internalbleeding.crap.town on Bisky on Blue Sky. So if you're interested in seeing a food fight or you're interested in seeing some other garbage that I captured out of that movie, it is on my feed. The acting is fucking horrible. Like, it's awful. It's the pits. Basically, the storyline of this movie is...
Are you telling me that the hang glider misled me and that is poorly acted throughout?
It is, yeah, it's bad. Like, do you know who Andrew Stevens is?
I don't think so.
Okay.
If I do, I don't.
He was in a bunch of, like, I want to say he was in a bunch of 80s, 90s Skinamax movies. That his acting, must be one of his early roles. It's awful. He's really bad. Like, all the characters really suck. But it's about this new kid that comes to...
by face, but not
yes, you would definitely recognize him. Comes to a new high school where the in crowd are basically a bunch of dickheads, and he happens to be the friend of the head dickhead from some other school. Like, they allude to it, but they don't really ever get into it. And it seems like maybe they're at some boarding school where they were picked on really heavily. And the first kid comes over to public school, quote unquote, and he decides like he's going to run with this group of people and they're going to pick on everybody and be assholes to him. So the new kid finds his friend. Like, they first find the new kid before his friend can find him, and they pick on him a little bit. And he's like, he doesn't put up with a bunch of shit. And once he kind of gets in with the in crowd, he decides he's going to kind of be like Robin Hood for the nerds and the outcasts, and he's going to start picking on the cool kids because he knows how to fight. When the friend finds out that the new kid is involved with his girlfriend, or they're like skinny dipping, they're like in the ocean frolicking around nude, full frontal nudity from both the man. Actually, I don't think his ding dong isn't shown, but the chick's fully frontal, and the guy's, at least you can see his ass. They decide they crush his legs under like a car where they took the tire off, and the rotor like falls on his legs, and he screams. And then the rest of the movie, he's kind of limping around, and he starts to take them out one by one. There's no mystery to it at all, but it follows very much this like prototypical. Again, it's from 76, so it follows this kind of prototypical slasher kind of vibe where he starts picking them off one by one, and everybody knows that he's probably the one doing it, but they don't quite know. And he comes back to get his revenge. It ends very abruptly. Like, it is one of the most ridiculous endings, besides having a freeze frame there. And you know my love of freeze frames. Basically, like, the guy kind of disappears, and the girlfriend, she's talking to somebody, and they kind of talk about what happened. They just make some shit up that has nothing to do with what happened in the rest of the movie. It's just this off the wall, out of nowhere thing, and freeze frame. And that's it. There's no explanation as to what happens. There's no aftermath. It just, the movie ends abruptly, and that's it. And I'd give it half a hot dog. I would recommend, if you like shitty acting, if you like funny effects, I think it's a movie you should watch. And that's called Massacre at Central High.
I assumed it's going to make its way onto the show before the end of summer, just because from the clips I've seen, it looks like it kind of is in our wheelhouse.
It's definitely in the wheelhouse. Yeah, for sure. How about you, John? What have you been watching?
So I've kind of been all over the map. Well, actually, probably not. Two of these are kind of right in the same genre, actually, firmly in the same genre. So I started my week with stuff that I'm going to bother to tell you about, with the movie War of the Gargantuas. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
Okay. So War of the Gargantuas is like a generic 1960s Japanese monster movie. Like it is 100% like two dudes in two different rubber suits just kicking the shit out of everything, and everything's like shot like really fucked up to scale and whatnot. And in the big picture of Japanese monster movies, like this is a Toho one, so it's the same studio that did all the Godzillas that you give a shit about, or that you should give a shit about for the most part. You know, in the big picture, like I can't remember if I've actually watched this one before or not. I feel like I had. This genre kind of is very like hard to like, they blend together, you know. Like I feel like I've watched probably 500 Godzilla movies or of the like, and I don't think there are quite that many. But as far as Japanese 60s monsters movies go, this is one of the more entertaining ones, because basically the premise is there's these two gargantuas that have come to town to fuck shit up. One's green and one's brown. The green one is just
they look the same. They're just different colors.
They look the same.
Okay.
They're different colors. The brown one's slightly smaller, but I don't know if that's, I think that's just because the guy in this, exactly. I think that's all it is. So basically the premise is like the green one shows up first and he's just a dick and he can be stopped, but if he gets back in water, it's like his health bar goes back to full and he's ready to go fuck shit up again. The brown one is kind of like chill, but at some point, he essentially gets kicked in the dick and starts rampaging too. And that's basically the whole movie. They go back and forth. And by the end of it, it turns into, you know, this brawl and whatever. What's fun about it is I've never seen one of these movies that is more obviously guy in a suit running around kicking over model like cities and stuff like that. Even if you go back to the original, like black and white Godzilla, the very first one, like we know that's just a guy in a suit and whatnot, but it looks better than what this does. This literally looks like they went to Legoland and just started kicking shit around until they got told to leave. And whenever they show him jumping, like the green one, because he will sprint back to water, like if he's near, you know, an ocean or a lake or whatever, he'll sprint to it. And he looks like you would expect a guy wearing like a giant rubber suit to look when he's running. And he just cannonballs the fuck into these like lakes. And it looks fantastic because you can tell the way it's shot. Like the scope is all out of whack. Like there's this huge lake, like a lake-sized lake, and they put all these like miniature houses around him on the ground to make him look bigger. But you can see stuff like a boat in the background that's clearly to the right scale. Like it messes with everything in a way that's just like wonderful. So that one is a hell of a lot of fun. I think that one's on Tubi. I think that's where I stumbled onto that one. Staying in that genre, and you had asked me about this a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I watched the Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire that came out like last year.
Yeah.
Do you care if I kind of ruin this movie? Because I'm kind of like not happy with it. So
feel free.
Let me ask you a question.
All right.
If you go into a movie that has Godzilla and King Kong in it, what do you want to see happen in that movie?
I want to see them beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah. It takes about an hour before the two of them are even on the same screen together. Like most of it is like King Kong gets thrown into like a fucking bottomless pit or some shit and goes and hangs out with some other chimps and becomes like king of those chimps. But like they're also pissed. I don't know. It's like the entire thing is CG except for like the 5 human actors that they think I give a shit about, which I don't.
Right.
And when they finally get to giving you Godzilla and King Kong on the same screen, they decide that they're going to team up, and they even go as far to do like the anime style, you know, the anime thing where they have like 2 characters running at the screen. Sometimes they have like an oversized sword. They do that in the middle of the movie. Like I think there were like 4 times I was like, oh, fuck you to this movie, like right in the middle of it, because it was so stupid. And they end up just fighting this one other big monkey that's not as big as King Kong and definitely not as big as Godzilla, but somehow he has a whip, so I guess he puts, I don't know, it's fucking dumb. I didn't like the one that came out before this, the one where they did fight in Tokyo. I think it's where they were fighting. Maybe it was, I don't know, it was a very neon-looking city, so I'm assuming it's Tokyo. I didn't like that one because it was too much CG, but at least they took the time to make the 2 characters that you want to fight, because what the fuck, I'm not paying to see Godzilla, like, team up with people. Like, I want to see them kick the shit out of each other.
Of course.
And yeah, this was just fucking not great. I was not happy with it, but I sat through the whole thing. So to rectify that, I cheered myself up because as soon as that stopped, You know, sometimes when you're on a streaming service and something stops and it pops up, you're like, well, I'm watching that right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what popped up after that, apparently this came out last year. I didn't know about it until yesterday. Documentary called Old Dirty Bastard, A Tale of Two Dirties. Hour and a half long, and it just chronicles ODB's entire life. And I was like, well, this is just fixing my entire fucking week right here.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Cured all your ills.
it started trying to roll into your Wu-Tang show that you talked about like 3 years ago at this point, which I was like, I don't have time for that right now. I don't have time to get into that yet. But I'm a fan of Wu-Tang. I'm a fan of Old Dirty Bastard. I think it's weird that they keep referring to Wu-Tang as the clan in the documentary. I'm like, that's a little confusing.
Which clan exactly are we talking about here?
All things considered, that's a little confusing, especially since they go into a lot of like ODB being a 5%er and what that means and all that stuff. And I won't bore you with that because it's kind of racially charged, and that's neither here nor there. Like it is something that he was into, but I was like, it's interesting that he would join a group that they keep referring to as the clan, if that's like where his thought process is, but whatever. And it also makes you feel really bad for what happened to him kind of in the latter half of his life before he passed. Like basically after he went to jail and came out, and without putting it too bluntly, like the industry just basically set up the events for him to die is what happened. Like they didn't shoot him or anything like that, but they certainly didn't do anything to get him in a position where he would be less likely to be dead. Like they just set him up for failure, and that all in the name of trying to cash in on him being ODB. And I mean, we both lived through the height of Wu-Tang's popularity. Do you remember him being, so they paint him as like one of the biggest stars on the planet during like the height of their popularity. I remember Wu-Tang being pretty big, but I don't remember them ever being bigger than like Dr. Dre. I think Eminem was pretty big around that time, and when he took off, like that was it. And Jay-Z and all that shit. Like I kind of remember them being like, this is a wrong way to say it because they're obviously like a huge band at that point, but almost being the underground version of what hip hop could be compared to the Eminems, Jay-Z's, etc. Like they were quite on the same level as those guys, but they kind of paint him as he was like the biggest star on the planet for like this 10-year period there.
Oh yeah. No, I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, I'm not like a huge hip hop fan, but I wouldn't agree with that at all. Yeah. I would agree with your summation. Like he would be kind of like the alternative popular version of someone like a Jay-Z or someone in the hip hop stratosphere, you know, someone that was like a household name. He was definitely someone that people knew, but
he was like the Pantera to Metallica in the decade before. Like, I don't like Metallica, they're sellouts, so I'm going to go listen to Pantera, but they're both fucking huge, you know?
Right. Yes. I would agree with that.
But yeah, that was a pretty good one. If you have any interest in hip hop, Wu-Tang, or Old Dirty, any of them, that's a strong recommendation. Like it's got his whole family on there, so I'm assuming it's pretty accurate. I guess I won't know. I'm not in the right, group of people to know. Mm-hmm. The only person that wasn't really in there, like there's a couple clips of him in there. The only person that wasn't in there that I would have liked to see more was Method Man, because they get RZA, they get Jizza, they get Ghostface, they get all the like players that you would expect in there. Method Man is like mysteriously absent from it, aside from one or two things where he pops up like either in like a concert footage or
like archival footage kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but no talking head stuff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's a strong recommendation from this half of the show for sure. I could talk about some other shit, but I don't really have any others there. I mean, it's, monster movies and dead rappers over here. So unless you got something else you want to hit on, we can switch gears and head over to Spring Break or Nightmare Beach if you want.
I'm ready to go to the beach and get my sunburn.
All right. Well, let's get sunburned. We're going to take a quick break, burn ourselves, and come back and talk about the aforementioned Nightmare Beach.
Hi everyone, AI John here. Did you know that we're on the You Run Podcast Network? YouRunPodcast.com is home to great shows like You Gonna Eat That Crust, Pop Culture Reflections Podcast, Voices of the Mausoleum, and many more. Head over to YouRunPodcast.com and find your new favorite show today.
All right, and we are back. And as mentioned, we're going to be talking about the movie Nightmare Beach. As per usual, we're going to start with a third-party review, and this time we're going to Letterboxd from the offspring of George Costanza 7, who says, "Go Gators! Boobs, trashy music, and stupid characters. Yup, this is an 80s slashers. The can't take a joke guy was horrible. I'm glad Robbie died early. He's an awful character. Happy to see Michael Parks and John Saxon in this thing. Love the soundtrack, and the killer reveal was actually surprising. Glad they didn't do the supernatural route. 2 out of 5 stars." He actually gave this more, like, positive notes than I would have thought for a 2 out of 5 star review.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
I have a feeling we're going to get into why momentarily. So, Sean, what is this movie, Nightmare Beach, all about?
All right, so for that, we go over to IMDb. We type in the words Nightmare Beach, and it pulls up a movie from 1989. This gets an R rating. It is 1 hour and 30 minutes long. If we're looking at ratings, it gets a 5.4 out of 10 with 3,300 ratings. And we go up to the top. Yes, John.
I found this funny.
Why do you interrupt my flow?
Third-party
What?
Summit Day.
I know.
Squatting on tools.
Yep.
This has a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I was like, you can make a lot of criticisms about this movie, but that seems excessively low. Anyway,
I would agree.
back to your flow.
Back to my flow. We go to the storyline and the plot. Never know which one is which, but we start on the top. We read that one because I wouldn't put it first on the top if they didn't want you to read it first. It says, after the execution of a motorcycle gang leader convicted of murder, a helmeted biker goes on a killing spree during spring break in Florida. If we scroll on down, we get a very, very, very long storyline. This is care of Claudio Carvalho from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And Claudio has written in before, so thank you, Claudio. I'm going to be reading a very abridged version. It says, in Miami, the leader of the Demons motorcycle gang, Diablo, is sentenced to the electric chair. Before being executed, he says that he is innocent and was framed by the chief of police, Stryker, in the murder of a young woman. He promises to return from beyond to seek revenge. In the Easter holiday, the city is crowded by young people when a biker gives a ride to a young woman and electrocutes her on the road. Meanwhile, the body of Diablo is missing from his grave, and the Mayor Loomis, Doc, Willett, Stryker, and Reverend Bates believe his gang has stolen his coffin. When the corpse of a young woman is found, they decide to cover up the information to the press. The football players and friends, I know I said I'd abridge this, but this is the last sentence. The football players and friends, Skip and Ronnie, come to the city to forget the defeat of their last game and have a good time. They meet the bartender Gail, and soon Ronnie gets in trouble with the Demons gang. I'm not going to read any more because we're going to talk about what the rest of this movie is about, but I wanted to mention all that good stuff. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this movie is listed on IMDb as being directed by Umberto Lenzi, who also directed, we talked about about a month and a half ago at this point, Primal Rage. Umberto Lenzi had a part in writing the script. He kind of got up to when production started and he had a disagreement with the studio. So James Justice, who is, I think he's like some kind of other person. His name isn't really James Justice, but he was the one that finished this movie. There are a lot of similarities between Primal Rage, a couple of the same actors. I was going to say a couple of the same actors from Primal Rage are in this movie. So it does hold some similarities, and that movie also took place in Florida.
I love the story that Lenzi only took this job to get a free trip to Florida and then quit.
Wouldn't you? Florida's a good place.
Depends on how much you have to be in traffic, I guess.
True.
So, directors aside, who else is in this movie, Sean?
So we also have Nicolas de Toth. He plays Skip. He is the star quarterback. He is the star quarterback in this movie. He's the one that's on spring break. He's probably more known these days as being an editor. He has some credits as an editor on 3 episodes of the Obi-Wan Disney Plus show. He was an editor on Live Free or Die Hard. He was an editor on X-Men Origins Wolverine. We've got Sarah Buxton, who is also in Primal Rage. She plays Gail. We last again talked about her in Primal Rage. So other than that, her high points were Rock and Roll High School Forever and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. We also have Lance Legault, who plays Reverend Bates. He was in Kentucky Fried Movie. He was in the TV version of Logan's Run. He played Colonel Glass in Stripes and was the general in Iron Eagle. We've got Michael Parks, plays Dr. Willett. He's a character actor. We talked about him in Tusk, but he was also in Red State. He was in From Dusk Till Dawn. He was in Grindhouse. He was in a few Tarantino movies.
Pretty much every Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez movie.
Yeah, pretty much. And then last but not least, the last one you'd probably recognize right off the bat is John Saxon. He plays Chief Stryker. He's, again, another character actor in films like A Nightmare on Elm Street. He was in Enter the Dragon, and he was also in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Was it? I forgot about that.
Nah, that's what IMDb
Look at
said. I'm going with that.
Well, now I'm confused. I want to know who he was in that movie.
He was at Rockaway Beach.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the whole show for a minute. Just go look this up now because I'm curious. So,
God damn it.
Sorry.
What do you think this?
Is he dead yet?
Yes. 23, I think.
Oh. So, Sean, I already know the answer to this because you brought it up as part of your drinking game on Primal Rage. But what's your history with the film Nightmare Beach?
I'm a big fan. I've seen this a few times. Most recently, I want to say maybe 6 months ago. So recently.
Okay.
I returned to it a few times lately.
Yeah, and for me, I am also familiar with it. I wouldn't go as far to say big fan of it, but I do enjoy it. I do like it. It's kind of, and I'm sure we're going to get to this, it kind of hits that sweet spot for the kind of movie that it is. Kind of like our guest reviewer says, it kind of has all the, like, maybe not all, but the majority of the check boxes that you want in an 80s horror movie. I'd even say like a 90s horror movie, because there's a lot of this that feels more like a 90s movie than an 80s movie. 1989, to your point.
It's right on the verge, yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you the last time I watched this. It's been quite a while, but it felt good to revisit it, and probably will make its way back into the rotation a little bit more. I have to hunt down a physical copy of this now. So let's start off with kind of the easy side of this. So what do you like about this movie?
Well, first off, like face value, I love the poster art, the box cover, whatever you want to call it for this movie. It is essentially this helmeted motorcycle person with a reflection in his visor of him like putting his hand on a woman's mouth, and behind it is all these figures, and it almost looks like flames or some kind of fire or something behind him. I think that's a great, like, iconic cover. This is one that I've seen several times and one that's hard to forget because it just has so much going on. I think kind of another thing about the movie that I really enjoy is you can tell that they didn't really put sunscreen on these actors, because as the movie progresses, I don't know if it was filmed in sequence. I'm assuming it was, because as the movie progresses, the actors get more and more sunburnt, especially Skip, the main guy, Nicolas the Toth. He kind of gets more and more sunburnt as the movie goes on. I like that there are these. This is a plus and a minus.
To the Florida trip, at least for one of us. So.
Yeah, not me. I wear sunscreen. I like that this movie.
So did I. It didn't fucking matter.
Well, okay. That's debatable. So I like that this is a plus and a minus, is that there are these, I don't know. I'll first get to the plus part, and then I'll integrate the plus and the minus. The plus part, there's a scene where there's a shark in the water, and it looks like a fin, like a dorsal fin kind of floating above the water, typical Jaws or a shark scene in a movie. And somebody screams, "Shark! Everybody get out of the water!" And everybody's running out. And this cop comes up and he just starts indiscriminately firing into the water. And when he takes this like half a second to pause, the guy stands up and he's like, "Hey, sorry, just fooling around. Don't shoot, don't shoot." And it's a guy with a shark kind of quote unquote costume. And that kind of leads me into a plus and a minus for me. There are so many things in this movie that are just like, they're kind of pointless subplots. They don't really have anything to do with anything else, but they're just kind of in the movie. And one of them is like, I'll just name a few of them. There's there's a girl that's like a prostitute or an escort or something, and she keeps telling these old perverts that she's, going to law school or she's becoming a nurse. And these guys are going into her hotel room during spring break, and they don't really get into
the nastiest guys.
Yeah, they're really gross.
All of Florida too.
Disgusting, right? They're like overweight, or these like grossly overweight, or these slimy old businessmen, or just whatever. And they give her donations for her college fund, but she's just like, she's an escort. She's having sex with these guys. So that's one subplot. There's the subplot of the guy. Nothing ever happens to this guy, but there's a blonde guy on the beach who keeps stealing everybody's money. So there's a few scenes in this movie where they're in a bar, and the guy will take the money, or he took the money out of the person's wallet while they gave him a ride. Nothing really happens to him. It's just kind of in there. And you're like, was something supposed to happen with this guy? Don't really know. There's the guy that plays the pranks, he's the shark guy. He's got if you ever watch the trailer, he has like the little rubbery, gross shit on his shoulder. He's just he pretends like he's dead out on the beach. He does actually meet his demise, but the last
it's basically Shelley from Friday the 13th Part 3.
Yeah, with not as much of a payoff.
But not fat.
Right.
He's not fat either. So.
And the last guy I'll mention, there's several other things, but the last
fat
guy
by
I'll mention,
1989 standards, I guess.
Right.
So.
Skinny by our standards, but fat by mid 80 standards, is the Go Gators guy. Go Gators! He just runs into the scene. He screams. He'll show up in the jail. He shows up like at all these random places, but he's only like the last half of the movie and beyond. So I've talked a lot about some of my likes. I do have a few more, but I want to hear some of your likes, John. What do you like about this movie that I didn't touch on yet?
You so go Gators guy, because that guy might be my favorite part of the movie because he's so random and so obnoxious, and he's cheering this guy that lost the game, which is why he's all like bummed out throughout the movie. But Go Gators guy is one of my favorites, but it kind of like goes with one of the things I like is I love the insane tonal shifts in this movie. Like this movie opens with a guy on death row who gets executed in front of John Saxon and Michael Parks and several others that we learn about in the movie, which I don't even know if we need to learn about them, but we do. And it's a very it's not played like the rest of this movie. It's a scene where this is the only scene where electrocution does not cause you to burst into flames. Disappointingly, it's the only scene that they show restraint. Like they put the bag over his head. Like you see him in the chair and kind of shake, kind of whatever, but they don't really go overboard with it like the rest of the movie. And then literally it's bam, we're right to sunny Florida beach. I'm assuming this is somewhere like Miami or something along
Fort
those lines.
Lauderdale
I don't know.
Something. Yeah.
I don't think it ever, I think it says Manatee Beach or whatever. I don't know if that's a real place or just what they called it for the sake of this, but I don't really care. Just, it goes directly to its execution, wet t-shirt contest. I'm skipping around a little bit, but that's the tonal shifts that you get in this movie. So you'll see these insane, I'm not that far off. I know.
You're not jumping around that much. Yeah.
So I think that's really interesting. It doesn't really help the movie as far as telling a cohesive story, but it does help the movie as far as getting that level of, I don't know, campiness that you only find from this kind of movie. You haven't brought it up yet, so I'm going to bring it up. I love the kills in this movie because they are so fucking ridiculous. And they're ridiculous in the way that these are not horror movie kills that are going to scare you. They're just not. These are horror movie kills that are going to make you laugh. And I don't know what the intention was. I can only imagine it was to make you laugh. So this killer's primary mode of killing is with electricity. There's a couple times where he just decides to do other shit for reasons, I guess. But primarily he's using electricity to kill these people. And I think it's great that every time they do it, they the first 2 to 3 seconds of them getting killed is think chopping mall with electricity being drawn all around them in different colors, no less. And then they'll cut the to either someone's hand or something that's not their face. And then it's just clearly this shopping mall mannequin that they stuffed with gasoline and lit a match on just to melt spectacularly and leave as a charred face for, the cops to find. So I love how just ridiculous the majority, and even the kills that are not with electricity, there's spoilers. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, I don't think that me spoiling this movie is really going to take anything away from it. That's what kind of movie this is. When they get to the scene where they kill the girl with fire randomly and essentially turn her into the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he opens the fucking casket up or whatever and melts his face. I almost feel like if it wasn't for all the gratuitous nudity and sexual content in this movie, this would be wacky enough to be a PG-13. That's how silly these kills are. And it works for this movie because even the guys that you think are supposed to be bad guys, the demons, who also, side note, I love that they ripped off the demons logo from the films to put on the back of their jackets. I think that's a cool little touch. And I'm sure what's his face, the Italian dude whose name I'm spacing on at the moment,
Umberto
had a hand
Lenzi.
in that. Yeah, him. I'm sure he had a hand in it, but I think that's a great one. It kind of looks the part for movie biker gang. Aside from some of the other really 80s thing about them, the studded belt around the head and some of that type of shit. Just the patches on. I'm all right, for a movie biker gang this actually, that part works. I don't know about the rest of it, but that part works. So I like the just over the top ridiculousness of everything in this movie. Now it does kind of like so many things I like in the films that we talk about, it almost works as a double-edged sword because it's so sporadic all over the place that there's a part of me that feels like this. I understand what the plot is in this movie. I do. But there's a big part of me that feels like this movie is just like a lot of random shit happening with tits in between it to kind of glue it together. And although there is a plot that's sort of in there, and I'm not going to go as far as to say it's fleshed out well or anything like that, or it's certainly not acted well, I almost don't care. Like, it's so ridiculous that I don't know if that's a negative or a positive. It just becomes kind of like eye candy, like, I don't want to call it background noise, but I think this is going to be a really, so we are showing this at Franks and Steins this month. I think this could be a really fun movie for that environment because it really lends to being a movie that you don't have to pay that close of attention to because it doesn't really fucking matter.
This, I was going to jump in earlier, but this does really match the tone and even the tonal shifts of something like Primal Rage. They're so closely related. Like the Primal Rage, this one starts a little bit slower. It starts kind of somber with the execution of Diablo in the electric chair, but then it jumps to this immediate like TNA kind of college teen comedy feel. Like it's not quite as I don't know.
Feels more 90s than 80s at that point.
And it doesn't feel quite as like frivolous as something like the beginning of Primal Rage does with him riding around on the scooter like, hey, pointing out all the co-eds and they're waving at him. He's taking their picture. It's not quite that to that extent, but it feels very much in that same vein. And with that movie, this movie kind of the same way. Ronnie is one of the, so Skip and Ronnie are the two friends, and Ronnie's in my like category because while he's this huge doucher, he's also a character that you go in with the expectation that he's going to play this bigger part. And then when in the spoiler, like 30 minutes in or maybe 40 minutes into the movie, he gets taken out. And just
I don't feel like that's a spoiler. I think
really,
the characters that die in this movie, you kind of can pick them out like that. If you've watched any horror movie, the characters that get picked off in this movie pretty much all have a tone. You know they're going to die pretty soon.
The point that I'm getting to is that when he dies, it's very similar to when the reporter friend dies in Primal Rage, and the movie takes this total shift from that point on where it starts to become like they try to get to this very serious place of a horror movie, like a slasher or whatnot. They even go so far in this movie. The song that plays over and over and over, Say the Word, in Primal Rage is also played in this movie a few times, and they have a concert with the same band who played that's actually it's not the same band because the band members are different, but they play the same. It's like this outdoor
it feels
in the
like
park.
the same scene.
It does. It's like an outdoor in the park kind of concert, and all these little, you know, all these college kids and middle-aged people that you can pick out in the crowd are kind of boogieing down as the movie goes on, and they use the same song. It's like they stole that same page out of the playbook that Primal Rage used to such good, I don't know, effect or whatever, that they use it in this one. And I love the fact that these bikers are basically just like this red herring to play this menace that go on in the background. And there's a scene where Skip gets captured by the bikers and they're about to just beat his ass because he's spying on them or whatever. After Ronnie gets taken out, he's looking for Ronnie. Skip gets captured by the bikers and they have like a big, you know, link chain around his neck and they're about to just beat the shit out of him. And John Saxon, Stryker, comes in and he breaks it up. And then again, spoiler, at the end of the movie, the bikers kind of return the favor later on to kind of break up something that's going on with Stryker.
I want to hold off on the end of the movie. I want to do our negatives first because I want to come back to the end of the movie and talk about it a little more in detail than we usually do because of what this movie is.
Okay.
So we'll come back to that.
One more like for you. I got one more like. I love, it's not even a like, it's a love. I love that the chief of police, Chief Stryker, John Saxon, lives in a trailer. It's not like other movies where the cop lives in this big mansion they can't afford, like Axel Foley or somebody probably has some huge flat in Detroit that there's no way that he could afford. Action Jackson, we're going to use Detroit again. I'm sure he lives in this elegant place. Even Cobra lives in this great apartment where he has his batteries and his ammunition and pizza with the corner cut off of it or whatever in the freezer. But his house is a dump. And Stryker's house is just this shitty trailer that's like, you know, they have beehives and shit, a dog shitting all over the place. He's got all just guns all over the place. It's a good change of pace from what we expect to see in a police apartment in the 80s.
I love that they drop when they go into his trailer. They find all this S&M like bondage shit in there, but they never do anything to like explain. Not that you need to explain it, but it's just there to make him look like a shithead.
Yeah, there's nothing, no additional subtext,
no payoff,
or anything.
no,
right.
Yeah, it's like they don't pull this out. They pull some other. It's like they go in and just find this like 5-foot long dildo just to be like, huh, that's cool, and then move on with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, they have like a cock collar and some fucking whips and shit, and then it just shows up and it's gone.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I think if we could probably go on for the runtime of this movie about stuff that we like, because I think this is kind of, again, very much so in the wheelhouse. But are there any things that you want to kind of, before we ruin this entire movie for people who haven't seen it, is there anything in this movie that you want to go on that you don't?
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to restate the pointless kind of subplots. While I like it, I think it's funny. It adds to the movie. There's really no point to it, and they don't really pay off at all. These people randomly show up. I want to say that the actual motorcycle killer, the killer that rides the motorcycle itself is like a Honda Goldwing or something like that. Like think with the big,
definitely not a biker bike.
Yeah, think of like a big heavy set, like a middle-aged biker's bike, like a leisurely weekend warrior kind of biker's bike. And it has this huge, like welded pitchfork, weather vane, fucking lightning rod thing welded on the back of it. And it looks heavy as shit. Like it looks so stupid and heavy. And my last big kind of dislike, which none of these are really big, but they're just kind of gripes, is that the ending of this movie, I don't think it does actually. I was going to say, I don't think it ends in a freeze frame. It does. But the ending is so abrupt. They just kind of take care of business. Skip and Gale take care of business. And then the movies, they drive away and they kiss each other, where there is obviously romance brewing with these characters, but it's not super obvious, but you can tell that's what they're going for. And at the end, they just like run off together and they leave Florida. The end.
In their dead friend's car.
Yeah, the dead friend's car, and they're just somebody. I don't know if he's somebody on the beach, like digging up shit on the beach with a metal detector or something. And it has nothing to do with anything. It's just like a beach scene of people walking across the screen.
And we've already kind of hit on it, but yeah, that would be the biggest downside in this movie, is that it's really not good at doing the core thing of being a movie, which is telling a story. If that's your like primary thing you want out of a movie, this might not be the movie for you. Luckily for us, we don't weigh ourselves down with that kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But that's all optional. But yeah, that would be kind of the biggest thing, is like even having seen, and it sounds like you're more well versed in this movie than I am, but having seen it more than once, like I said, I know what happens in this movie, but I don't know that if I had just watched this once, if I would have picked all that out. I feel like you almost have to either have someone explain it to you or go back and watch it a couple times and almost like take notes to kind of piece together what's actually supposed to be happening in this movie. And there's a decent enough story in there. It's just told terribly. That can be blamed on both writing, directing, and acting, quite frankly. Like, none of them are particularly great in this. Oddly, this is the kind of movie that like somehow achieves anyway, because it kind of says like, we don't have any of this shit, but we're still going to have fun. And that's kind of where this movie shines. As far as other things that are negatives, like you kind of hit on it, like Diablo is like the biggest red herring. Like they're kind of like implying that he is coming back from the dead or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this bike that he's riding around is a little bit stupid because, yeah, like you said, there's no way in hell this would ever be mistaken as like a biker gang bike. Like, it's just not. This is the kind of, it's so like, its ass is so big, it might as well have training wheels on it. Like, it's just fucking dumb. And it's so big and heavy that he can't catch up to a girl on a scooter several times throughout this movie. And then it's funny, they kind of tack that on with like the intro scene where you see the bike the first time. He like maxes it out at like 80, which I mean, most motorcycles I'm sure can do that, but it doesn't make sense for this. So that's a little bit stupid. But yeah, my gripes with this, aside from the things that you had, like, it's really not the kind of movie that's worth writing about to me, because it's, you know, sometimes you see a movie that like this and you're just like, yeah, it's dumb, but I almost think that's what they were going for. And maybe they weren't going for that. Maybe that's just how it came out, but It's like if you go up to a piece of shit and call it a piece of shit. Well, it's a piece of shit. It knows it's a piece of shit. You're kind of like preaching to the choir, you know?
Here's a nice piece of shit.
Just like that. So we're going to talk about the ending of this movie more so than we usually do. And this will get into like heavy spoilers. So if you don't want to hear how this movie actually ends, this is your cue to fast forward a little bit. There's a couple things I love about this ending. And I'm just going to, the two things that I like the most about it.
Can't wait.
So first, John Saxon is the sheriff or chief or whatever. He's like the top cop in this city. He's like in charge of shit. He's the cop that you're following through this whole movie. You find out through the course of this movie that he's a dirty cop, which I don't really care about that. What's fucking great about this ending, I'm just going to put it out there, like, forget about how it happens and all this. I love that the bikers show up, just fucking shoot him and drag him off while he's still alive on the back of him, like just drag him on a motorcycle. That's the end of his character arc in this, as far as we know. He doesn't die on screen anyway from this gunshot, but I can't think of another movie where they just go and blast a cop, like, which is a major plot point for this movie. Like he's one of several, well, both of him and the demons are one of several red herrings in this movie, and they just go and shoot him and drag him away like, ah! And that's where the movie goes with his character. And then to do that and piggyback right onto it, well, all of a sudden this guy that we're assuming is, well, obviously not John Saxon at this point. It's not Michael Parks at this point because he's gone, which, by the way, I like that he's not a coroner, but he is drinking like a full-on fifth of liquor. It's not just a flask. It's like an Old West, like leather satchel of liquor. It's great.
It's got like a deer skin or whatever full.
Yeah. It's like he's holding an accordion up every time that he takes a swig. So our killer comes in, and now you're almost, if you're paying attention to the movie, you're almost like, maybe this is Diablo, or maybe he is like not dead or what, even though you've seen his corpse at this point, because corpses stand up in this movie. I love how, like, we've talked about this, I don't know how many times on this podcast. It's one of my favorite things in the horror genre. It's a big trope. This movie, more than any movie I can think of that's not a movie of this title, just goes full fucking Scooby-Doo with the killer. Straight up to the point of where they knock the mask off of him, and I won't say who it is, so I won't totally give away, but they knock the mask off of him and go, oh, golly gee willikers, it's Lank. And he's like, I would have gotten away with it if you were for you goddamn kids. And then he proceeds to chase them at like 5 miles an hour, run into like the most avoidable obstacle in the world, and go into the least OSHA approved like line of electricity to be the least electrocuted person in this entire fucking movie, other than maybe Diablo. Like the whole sequence of events, and it all takes place in like 30 seconds. Like this is a super quick scene where it happens, but it is like the most Scooby-Doo ending outside of a Scooby-Doo movie that I can think of.
And I really enjoy the fact that I don't think there's any clues, however many times I've watched this, because there are all these things that happen. The police are covering up these spring breakers that are getting hurt and all this stuff, and they don't really kind of get into exactly what the payoff is. But when they unmask who is the actual helmeted, like, biker killer person, did you have any inkling that this person, there was a reason for this guy to be doing this other than what he kind of, the 3-second explanation that he gives? Did you see it coming at all?
If I hadn't seen this movie before, no, I don't think I would. It's because he's such a throwaway character in so many ways. And that's what makes it so Scooby-Doo-like. He's the guy that's at the beginning of the movie, maybe he comes in and says, hey, goddamn you kids, and or whatever. I'm paraphrasing. He probably wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Okay. True.
You know, he says, you know, he's just like a super throwaway character. And then the only character that's like attached to this character also dies in the movie. So there's no real reason to think that he should be coming back again just to Scooby-Doo his way into the end. It's, in a lot of ways, it's like, that was dumb. But in a lot of ways, it's like, okay, chef's kiss. Like, bravo.
You earned it.
Yeah. So maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think it is just a hilarious kind of turn of events that lead us to who the actual killer is. And I think Scooby-Doo is just a perfect descriptor as to what happens and how it happens. And it, like you said, it just comes so quick and it's just gone. And then the chief of police gets dragged, gets dragged off by his feet. They wrap a chain like, oh, see ya, bye. Help me.
Taking him off to Freddy's boiler room or something.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know how much more we could really add to this without just, like I said, gushing over it. I think it's pretty clear where this is going to go, but I think it's also hot dog time. So unless you got anything else you want to tack on, let's fire up the grill.
Then you're in for a big treat, bro, because it's hot dog time.
So I feel like this is kind of Sean's movie, so I'm going to leave us off. I'll let him have the last word on this. This movie's a full hot dog. This is a Frankenstein's hot dog with several beers washing it down. This is all the kind of fun this has got. Our guest reviewer kind of nailed it. It's got schlock and boobs and gore, and it's got everything you want for a movie, as long as you're not overly concerned about stupid things like plot or character development or, I don't know, reason, any of that type of shit. It's fun. This is, it's almost hard to find movies that kind of fit the season of summer that are horror movies. But I'd almost could question how much of a horror movie this is because it is so silly, but I don't think it really fits in any other genre that well. At the heart of it's kind of a slasher, I guess, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to watching this with an audience. I hope that we have a good turnout for it because I just feel like the more people that are there, the more fun it's going to be. It does have its shortcomings. It is kind of womanizing. I guess that's the negative, but it's also a product of its time. It's a full hot dog, and I'm going to hunt it down on Blu-ray or DVD or something and find a copy of it probably sooner than later.
Whose hot dog is this, huh? Is it yours?
I want to agree with you. I think this movie really would benefit from a large crowd because I feel like the kills are so ridiculous and out there. And just the stupid shit that happens in this movie, it would be a lot of fun to hear a bunch of people roar. The crowd roars when some stupid thing happens. So I mentioned this during the Primal Rage episode, but I really feel like this should be a double feature. Primal Rage and Nightmare Beach should be a double feature. There are, to my knowledge, there are no two movies that were made so close to each other and with roughly the same crew that match this. I'm even looking for Umberto Lenzi movies that happened just before and just after to see if they kind of capture the same feel. Haven't gotten through all that yet, but they both start out with this full TNA teen comedy feel, and they both quickly reveal themselves to be much more than that. I mean, maybe not much more, but they're not just a regular TNA teen comedy kind of film, but they start to get a little bit more deep into that quote unquote horror. Again, not super scary horror, but it is categorized as horror, so we'll call it that. This movie is absolutely full of red herrings, lots of little tiny subplots that go nowhere. Mentioned it in my likes and dislikes, but it's also a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm always happy to watch a really fun movie that, might be a little loose on story and be really fun rather than some of the dreck that we've been watching and talking about lately. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but if you're into watching just silly, stupid, nonsensical movies that are a lot of fun, I would give this one a go. I think it's fairly obvious. I give Nightmare Beach a full hot dog, the most hot dogs I can give. This is a big favorite of mine, and I've really become enamored with it, I guess, over the last couple of years and rediscovering it, I think 2 years ago, and just, it's always one I recommend to people that just want to be in for some stupid, silly fun.
Love stupid, silly fun.
Yeah. More fun than a bag of hammers.
More fun than a bag of hammers. Yeah, I guess that depends what you're doing with the hammers. So.
Yeah, could be falling on them.
What year was Primal Rage?
This is, I think that was 88.
88. So these are literally within a year. They probably shot at the same time or just about.
Primal Rage was 88. This is 89. So they were probably just back to back, especially if you said Lenzi took it because he was getting a trip to Florida. I'm sure this was a package deal. He makes 2 movies and he's out. But yeah, I have not found any other movie. Bobbity boo. I haven't found another movie that's similar in this vein yet, but they're out there. Just, I was maybe if I follow the director's trajectory, we'll see the next one. And then he gets into, I haven't found one that's all that similar yet.
Didn't he do that shark movie that I watched a while back, last something or other where I can't remember now. So
not La Ultimo Squalo. That's the only, that whenever somebody brings up a shark movie that's not Jaws, that's always one.
I'm pretty sure that's it. So Anyway, our question of the week this week. So we are actually recording this on Memorial Day. So I don't know if that is the only reason why we only got one response on this, or if people just don't give a shit. Either way, that's fine. But our question of the week this week is pretty direct. We just want your input on what films or topics should we cover on this show. So it's kind of generic. We only got one response. It is from Boomer, who is a good friend and over at Podcast in the Woods. You follow him at Woods Podcast 1 on all the social medias. And he says, Prophecy, the monster movie. He says, I seem to remember this one being pretty good. Maybe you could cover it and tell me. Plus, it has a mutant bear. Boomer, you should have led with mutant bear. I would have been sold on that. I know I've seen this cover before. I honestly don't remember if I've seen this or not. Are you familiar with this one?
I am not. I only know of when I think of I think of the Prophecy, and I think it's like the one
That's why I started over. I didn't put the word. This does not have the word "the" in it.
Yeah, isn't that one with like Christopher Walken or something in it?
He just put a poster up. I didn't see.
Yeah, 95 Christopher Walken. That's not. This is just Prophecy.
Mutant Bear. I'm all for trying to cover that. So we haven't covered a bear movie since Cocaine Bear, aside from when I talked about Grizzly and Grizzly Revenge.
We're down on our bear quotient. We need to bring it back up to quota.
It's true. Drug bears, mutant bears, whatever. Bears are good. How about you, Sean? Do you have any? I'm assuming this was one that was on your bucket list. Do you have any any that just need to be covered on this show at some point that we haven't talked about yet?
There's way too many to talk about. I don't have a list or anything, but yeah, I can just kind of look at stuff and I'm like, we should talk about that. We should talk about that. We should talk about that. There's so many things. It's not like we're running out of topic. It's just that
oh God, no.
Yeah, we just want to kind of get feedback as to like what's something because I don't think we've really covered anything that was a direct suggestion lately, because we've been doing theme months like pretty much all year up until this month.
Yeah, it's been a minute, I'm pretty sure. So it's probably a good segue to say you could recommend stuff to us. So we'd be glad to hear it. You can do that anytime, whether we have a question up or not. Feel free to shoot us a message and let us know if it's something that you want us to cover. We'll take a look at it. We more than likely will do it. We've only shot down a couple things. For me, I agree with you though. There's like a endless list of stuff, and we haven't even started getting into like endless sequels and reboots and shit like that. Like we've barely, outside of Friday the 13th and Halloween, we've barely scratched the surface on sequels. I think the only other sequel we did was, well, I guess Dawn of the Dead's technically a sequel, that and Scream 2. There's probably more of that coming. But quite honestly, like a lot of the movies that I will say that we should watch for this, like I know you're probably sick of hearing me say it. Like I found a random Lee Ferrigno movie called Instant Death, and I want to talk about that. And I'm holding off on watching it because I just want to go into it fresh for this and get like the most whatever. Not that it matters for the 4 people that listen to us. So yeah, a lot of stuff that I I find all kinds of garbage that I've not seen and like, well, I don't know what this is, but it looks like shit. We should probably talk about it. So
yeah, I'm a big fan of shit.
Yeah. So it is an ever evolving list of stuff. So
yeah. And I feel like there's stuff that not so much of stuff that even stuff that people haven't seen. Like we talked about The Manipulator last week, and it wasn't necessarily about watching The Manipulator and telling, oh, you got to see this movie. It's more so of like, this is something I've heard stuff about. I've heard it's ridiculous. We should watch it because it's, it's ridiculous.
I think it brings a different dynamic too. Like this one's obviously one that we both seen, and that makes it easier to talk about. And even if it's a movie that like half the show has seen, the other half hasn't, like just having a fresh take on it is always good too. So I like kind of going at it from both angles. So Prophecy, I don't know when, Boomer, but it will end up on the show at some point. We might bug you to come talk about it with us and subject you to it as well. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. For anyone else, Boomer, or any other person that wants to leave us feedback messages, like I said, you can do that anytime. We take requests whenever. There's no guarantee as to how quick they're going to get on the show, but we do listen and try to see when we can work them in because we like hearing stuff. That's how we found the movie The Hidden, which we both really enjoyed quite a bit. So please do send them our way. If you'd like to send us requests, you can do it on social media. Is probably the easiest place to do it. We're at Dewey Podmonster all over the place, except Blue Sky, where we're at craft.town. You can either leave it as a comment or direct message, whatever you prefer. We'll get it and add it to the list of stuff to cover. Of course, you can go to our site, which is crap.town. There is an option for feedback on there as well, which goes to both of us, and we'll leave feedback on there. You can go to yourunpodcast.com. Please do check out all the shows there, including us or the other stuff. I'm assuming there's a feedback option on there, and if you yell at Scott, who runs that page, and say, hey, these two schmucks really need to cover some bullshit, he'll probably tell me about it, or he won't. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Go there and let's find out. Let's make it a test. Someone go to yourunpodcast.com and see if a message makes its way to us. I don't know what I'm forgetting. Sean, what am I totally just brain farted, so bring us home, Sean.
Well, go there and go Gators. If you want to reach us on social media, you can check us out where John mentioned on all the social media at Dewey Podmonster. If there's anything on the show that we talked about that sounds interesting to you, we try to leave them in the show notes. We try to leave links to free options to watch these movies. But if you can't watch a free version, we might link it to Amazon. If it's in parentheses, it says Amazon. That is an affiliate link. You click those links, you spend some money, some Amazon bucks, you send them to Jeff Bezos. He can polish his bald head. I don't know what he wants to do, but when he does that with your money, he gives us a penny or two, and that helps the show. That's one of the great ways to help the show. Another great way to help the show is to leave a review on your podcast platform of choice, or tell a friend. If you like this show, if you like the shitty movies that we talk about, tell a friend, say these guys are delusional and they like shitty movies. You are delusional and you might like shitty movies too. You should check them out. We're available at crap.town. Other than that, you can find me on social media exclusively on Blue Sky. I am at internalbleeding.crap.town on Blue Sky. I'm the only one. I leave shitty, stupid little clips of stupid, shitty little movies that I watch. Sometimes I talk about baseball. And other than that, you can find me there, and I'll be there, and I'll be waiting for you to talk to me. I'm like the Psychic Friends Network, except I won't give you any good advice. I don't know if they give good advice either, but yeah, that's what I got.
We're not delusional. We're drunk and or high. There's a big difference.
Is there?
Depending on the time of day. Nah, maybe not. That's all we got for this week. So again, we are going to be playing this movie at Batch Brewing this month for our Frankenstein's event. This is going to be, it's a free show as always. It will be at 7 o'clock down in Cork County in Detroit. Please do come out, have a beer with us, watch this movie. If you're in the area, we'll have a lot of fun. We'd like to see you come out there and make this a real crowd experience if possible. That'd be great. I have a feeling we'll pull as much as this guy in its original release regardless, but we'd love to see you come down there and just enjoy this insane movie with us. So that's all we got for this week. Until next week, cheers, swell up, Butthorn, all that good stuff, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Bird season's over, Butthorn.
Whenever I hear the name of this movie, I think of that rock and roll beach. Isn't that a Ramones song? Is it Rock and Roll Beach? Is that a fucking
Rockaway
thing?
Beach.
Rockaway Beach, whatever. Fuck them. I don't give
Rock
a shit
and
about
Roll
New Jersey.
Radio was a Ramones
Rock and Roll
song.
High School. Well, I think of Night, Mare Beach. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. But
Well, the song you're singing is Bob Aran. It's a Beach Boys song.
whatever. What do you got to correct me? It's Barbara Ann.
I don't like the Beach
I
Boys.
got you back. Yeah.
But fine.
Meh, see, meh. I got to adjust my seat real quick.
Whose hot dog is this?
Meh. Am I going up or down? I can never tell.
That's what she said.
I know. She's doing squats on my tool.
That's how you do it.